Dodge. The Charger, the Challenger, the Viper. Muscle cars that defined American performance for over a century. A brand worth billions, sold in dozens of countries with a ram's head logo that every American recognizes. And the two men who started it all? Sons of a machinist from Niles, Michigan. They started their careers working at a boiler factory for wages, then at a typograph company in Canada. They had no money, no investors, no connections to the car industry. These two brothers built Henry Ford's entire empire, every engine, every chassis, every transmission on his first car. Ford could not have existed without them. Then Ford tried to cheat them. It was the biggest mistake of his life. John Francis Dodge was born on October 25, 1864. His brother Horace Elgin Dodge arrived 4 years later, on May 17, 1868. Their earliest memories were shaped by the clang of hammers and the smell of oil in their father William's machine shop on the outskirts of Niles, Michigan. William Dodge, a blacksmith and machinist, taught his sons to shape metal with steady hands and sharp eyes. The family lived simply, but the boys learned that skill and determination could open doors that money could not. By 1880, census records show the Dodges still in Niles, with John and Horace already working alongside their father. The shop on Main Street became their training ground, where every broken tool was a lesson in patience and problem-solving. Detroit's growing industry soon called to them. In 1887, city directories placed both brothers in Detroit, with John as a machinist at Brown and Miller and Horace as an apprentice. The pay was modest, but every shift in the noisy machine halls honed their craft and ambition. In 1894, opportunity took them to Windsor, Ontario, where the Windsor Typograph Company hired them as pressmen and machinists. It was here that Horace's inventive mind produced a breakthrough, a new ball bearing designed to keep out dust and grit. On October 22, 1897, Horace filed for U.S. patent number 602,110. The patent was granted in April 1898, and the royalties gave the brothers their first real financial foothold. They invested those earnings in a new venture, Evans and Dodge Bicycle Company, building sturdy bicycles in New York and Michigan. The business grew, and in November 1900, they sold it to the National Cycle Company. The sale, recorded in New York, provided the capital for their next step. On December 14, 1900, John and Horace Dodge filed the Certificate of Incorporation for Dodge Brothers Company in Detroit. John became president and Horace became vice president. Their company was small but built on hard-won skill and a willingness to take risks, ready to supply the heart of a new American industry. The Dodge brothers' fortunes changed with a handshake and a contract that would tie their name to the birth of American mass production. In 1901, Henry Ford needed more than ideas. He needed machines that worked. He turned to John and Horace, offering them the job of building 650 complete chassis for his new automobile company. The deal was simple on paper, $250 per chassis, payment on delivery. But Ford, short on cash, sweetened the offer with something more valuable, a 10% stake in the Ford Motor Company valued at $10,000. For the Dodge brothers, it was a risk. For Ford, it was a lifeline. The contract made John Dodge vice president of Ford Motor Company, a title that carried real weight in the boardroom. John's voice shaped the company's early direction, while Horace ran the production floor, overseeing a growing crew of machinists who turned out engines, transmissions, and axles with relentless precision. The Dodge's workshop at 190 West Fort Street thrummed with activity, setting the pace for Ford's ambitions. Oldsmobile came knocking, hoping to lure the brothers away, but John's response was blunt. Their commitment was to Ford, and the equity deal gave them a seat at the heart of the operation. The Dodge name soon became synonymous with reliability. Every Model A and early Model T owed its bones to their craftsmanship. As orders multiplied, the brothers expanded. In 1910, they broke ground on the Dodge main plant in Hamtramck, a 200,000 square foot factory with its own foundry, machining halls, and testing tracks. It was one of the largest in Detroit, built not just to supply Ford, but to prepare for a future when the Dodge name would stand on its own. The numbers told the story. By 1913, the Dodge's 10% stake had paid out $9.8 million in dividends, a staggering sum for two men who once worked for boiler plant wages. Their success gave them real influence inside Ford, but it also set the stage for conflict. As the dividends grew, so did the imbalance of power. John and Horace were no longer just suppliers, they were kingmakers, holding a stake that Ford himself would soon come to resent. John and Horace Dodge walked away from Ford in 1913, leaving behind their titles, their lucrative supply contract, and a partnership that had built the backbone of the Model T. The brothers did not step back, they stepped up. That same year in Detroit, they announced the Dodge Brothers Motor Company, signaling their intent to compete head-to-head with the man whose empire they had helped create. Their debut car, the Dodge Model 30-35, rolled out in November 1914 and stunned the industry. Where Ford's Model T offered simplicity, the Dodge delivered strength. The Model 30-35 carried a 35-horsepower four-cylinder engine, nearly double the power of Ford's car. It was the first mass-produced American car with an all-steel body, a 12-volt electrical system, and a sliding gear transmission. These were not just technical improvements, they were statements. Horace's engineering fingerprints were all over the machine, from the rugged frame to the sealed bearings that shrugged off dust and mud. The press took notice, but it was John Dodge's voice that echoed through the showrooms. Someday, people who own a Ford are going to want an automobile. The line was not just bravado, it was a warning. The Dodge brothers were no longer content to build for others. They were coming for the market themselves. Buyers responded in droves. By 1916, Dodge ranked second in United States car sales, trailing only Ford. That year, Dodge sold over 127,000 vehicles, an astonishing feat for a company barely 2 years old. The Model 30-35's reputation for durability and innovation turned the Dodge name into a symbol of working-class ambition realized. For Henry Ford, the message was clear. The brothers he once relied on were now his greatest threat. Inside the marble halls of the Michigan Supreme Court, the battle lines were clear. Henry Ford, the industrial giant who owed his empire to the Dodge brothers' machinery and grit, now faced them as adversaries. In 1916, Ford had stopped paying dividends, freezing out shareholders to fund his River Rouge expansion and higher wages for workers. For John and Horace Dodge, the loss was not just financial. Ford's move withheld nearly $1 million that year alone, money they had earned through years of sweat and risk. Their response was swift. They sued, demanding that a corporation serve its shareholders, not just the ambitions of its founder. The case, Dodge v. Ford Motor Company, docket number 204 Michigan 459, became a test of American capitalism itself. In April 1919, the court handed down a decision that echoed far beyond Detroit. Justice John H. Blair wrote that a company's duty was to its owners, and Ford could not withhold profits for his own vision of the public good. The ruling forced Ford's hand. He would have to pay. Ford chose to buy out the Dodge brothers' 10% stake. The price was staggering, $25 million, paid in a lump sum and installments, with interest to cover the years of withheld dividends. When the ledgers closed, John and Horace had turned a $10,000 investment into $34.8 million, a return that, even a century later, stands as one of the most astonishing in American business. The courtroom victory was more than a windfall. It was vindication for two machinists who had built the bones of Ford's empire, only to be pushed aside when their work threatened the king. But neither John nor Horace would live to see the full scale of what they had set in motion. Their triumph in court remains a monument to working-class ambition and the power of holding your ground, even against the mightiest in the land. The Dodge brothers gambled everything on grit and vision. They changed the course of American industry. Their prophecy echoes today. Someday, people who own a Ford are going to want an automobile. Every Dodge on the road is proof that ambition, once ignited, never truly dies.